Hello, I'm Diego Sornosa Parrales. I'm a PhD candidate at Western University in Canada y soy profesor en la Universidad Estatal del Sur de Manabí en Ecuador. In this presentation, I will talk to you about a hierarchy of styles to promote leadership sustainability in education. The purpose of this study is to review the existing literature to define a hierarchy of leadership styles based on the level of influence and the level of self-interest of the educational leaders. Research has suggested that leadership is a crucial component for the increase of organizational performance, especially in public organizations. With the proliferation of leadership styles, theories, and models, new ways of categorizing leadership are emerging. The hierarchy presented in this work reviews specific styles of leadership that could be considered gradual steps in changing the leader's ability to share the traits, skills, and knowledge that encourage people to follow them. Maslow's theory of human needs states that once one of the different human needs is satisfied, the person can move to a higher level and desire a different set of things. This presentation was based on Maslow's idea and argues that the different analyzed leadership styles involve different levels of influence and leadership sharing that can gradually change once the leader has fulfilled a specific level. The figure shows that the level of self-interest of the leaders has a direct opposite relation with the level of influence. This relationship may be caused because the higher the leaders climb in the pyramid, the more likely their position as a leader is to be taken by one of their nurtured followers, promoting sustainable leadership in educational institutions. Meeting present leadership needs without putting at risk the ability of the organization to meet future needs is defined in this work as leadership sustainability. This part of the presentation explains the different selected leadership approaches. Because of time constraints, it will be a short review, starting with transactional leadership. Transactional leadership focuses mainly on motivating workers through a relationship mediated by the position they have within the organization, like bosses to subordinates. It is grounded on contingent behavior based on the clarity of the task that, according to the results, will be awarded or punished. This style of leadership is common among instructors that become leaders, because in an educational setting, this could be considered as an extension of the guidance relationship between instructor and students. The students are assigned tasks, and according to their performance, they are awarded with a good or a bad mark. The leader-follower interaction is based on the exchange of rewards between the leader and the members of his team. It has been argued that this type of leadership, when well applied, achieves positive effects on employee satisfaction and performance. However, because transactional leadership does not usually recognize contributions beyond the expected goal, it can cause followers to avoid striving for higher achievements, creating a disadvantage in the competitiveness of the educational institutions. There are two subdimensions in this leadership style. The first one, contingent reward, which is done through reciprocal exchanges between leaders and followers of rewards or sanctions depending on the fulfillment of the objectives. The second one is the administration by exception, which occurs when the leader intervenes only to make corrections in the behavior of the followers, which usually occurs through negative criticism. Authentic leadership is a representation of ethical and professional reflective practices in educational management. This model of leadership requires skillful execution influenced by values and based on knowledge. Authentic leadership is a genuine, visionary, and creative response to the social environment. In this context, authenticity means being faithful to oneself. Authentic leaders are individuals deeply conscious of their values, beliefs, behavior, and the way others perceive them. Authentic leadership appears when the information given to leaders by members of the community and professionals is based on the understanding of value orientations and is oriented towards influencing the practices of others, pursuing socially justifiable objectives. However, some authors have questioned the existence of a single self in each leader and each particular moment, reflecting the social influence in constructing different identities in the execution of leadership. Ethical leadership can be defined as the display of normatively appropriate behavior through interpersonal actions and relationships, as well as the transmission of that behavior to followers through two-way communication, feedback, and decision making. A crucial aspect of leadership is making decisions. The critical decisions are those in which the value of a leader is radically tested when they face a dilemma between being and acting. One of the limitations of ethical leadership is the difficulty of determining precisely what is ethically correct and what is not. This should not be confused with the existence of laws or codes of ethic or practice, since in these situations it's a matter of simple compliance. The real ethical dilemmas related to leadership arise when there is no clear policy or law to which the leader can refer, but rather the execution of these moral judgments require the application of his or her wisdom. Transformational leadership implies directing and inspiring individual efforts by transforming and motivating employees. Studies have assessed a relationship between transformational leadership, performance, and outcomes. Transformational leaders also influence performance by using intellectual stimulation, encouraging followers to become more creative. This stimulation is notably different from transactional leaders that reward performance with contracts, employments, agreements, and other tangible forms of recognition. In this leadership style, leaders aim to motivate their followers to go beyond their self-interest in benefit of the organization. Distributed leadership goes beyond a simple redistribution of tasks. It represents a change in culture. This culture implies a high degree of commitment of all members of the educational community in the functioning and management of the institution. In this way, the distributed leadership takes advantage of the skills of everyone in a common cause, generating a manifestation of leadership in all the different levels. Some authors have claimed that distributed leadership cannot be considered a type of leadership by itself, because instead of a distributed leader, what exists is a multitude of individuals sharing the leadership role. This concept can be understood in two different ways. The first one is through the existence of more than one leader, preventing one person from monopolizing the leadership processes. The other form shows some similarities with the concept of collective agency, since it describes a particular group of individuals that operate as a whole thanks to the close working relationships they have developed. This nature of the symmetric relationship between distributed leaders and their followers is associated with the creation of new leaders. This style of leadership is not only about making people achieve their potential. It is about making people grow with their leaders up to a point where they reach the autonomy to become new leaders. As mentioned earlier, as in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it is possible to gradually transition from a lower level to higher levels of the pyramid. However, there is a possibility that some of the organizations and leaders do not need to make the complete journey described in this work. This section starts with a description of the essential elements required to migrate to an immediate higher level of the pyramid. The lowest part of the pyramid is reserved for transactional leadership, because followers are motivated by the existence of rewards or punishments. Although they can be generated or delivered by the leader, they are extrinsic to their personality. To move from transactional to authentic leadership, the leader must become aware that his or her behavior must be observed as a consistent by all the followers. By becoming a role model, the leader can motivate their followers. It is notable that at this level, the leaders still have a high focus on preserving their position. This focus begins to change once the leader accepts the ethical precepts and develops an ethical leadership style. The leader's decisions will be increasingly delimited by the values generated in the different social relations they maintain with their followers. In this scenario, the leaders begin to manifest a collective conscience that pushes them towards the establishment of a more altruistic environment. After this stage, the leader can focus not only on transmitting the organizational culture to his or her followers, but can also transform it with them. Then, the leaders become individuals with a high level of influence over their followers. They adopt the transformational leadership to face the uncertainty of educational organizations, using their charisma and their vision to increase the commitment of the followers and their dedication to fulfilling common objectives. At the highest level of the pyramid, besides inspiring with his or her vision, the transformational leaders exert influence on their followers thanks to their ability to share the leadership role. As mentioned in the previous section, distributed leadership is not exempt from criticism, but its usefulness for the generation of new leaders has also been recognized. The gradual transition in the different levels of the pyramid represents an ideal scenario to reduce the impact of replacing leaders in educational organizations. By using this approach, it could be possible to promote controlled organizational change, where the adaptation of the leader and the organization is executed optimally. This research shows a theoretical exploration of how several of the leadership approaches can be applied and understood to manage organizational change properly. Despite having a theoretical perspective, this work is aimed at leadership practitioners in educational environments. This hierarchy can be used to develop on-the-job training programs, making it easier for followers to learn the skills they need to lead new teams while they develop their activities. Being a process of organizational change, the implementation of this hierarchy requires the commitment and support of the administrators of organizational institutions, as well as the development of mentoring initiatives to achieve success. It should be recognized that it is very complicated to establish limits in the existing theories of leadership. So there is always the possibility that educational leaders use elements of different models according to each of the scenarios they have to face. The importance of the context for leadership has been recognized by several authors, so this proposed path should only be used as a reference and not as the only viable alternative to maintaining the sustainability of leadership in educational institutions. Considering the importance of the context, it is practically impossible to affirm that any of the styles of leadership identified in the literature is the best of all under any circumstance. For that reason, the classification presented in this work only seeks to theoretically illustrate the most convenient styles to ensure the continuity of leadership processes in educational institutions, regardless of the level of staff turnover they may present. On the other hand, it should be noted that the duality leader-follower has been increasingly questioned in the recent literature. However, this work starts from the premise that both roles cannot simply disappear, but rather they exchange actors according to the circumstances, doing this more marked in the higher positions of the pyramids. In the slides, I included visual representations of the leaders, followers, and other members of the educational institutions in each of the selected theories. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, please use the comment section below. If you find this topic interesting, I have several ideas for future research I'd like to discuss with all of you. Bye for now.